But then the next question has to be, okay, so you have something greater than you have. You said you have external. So you have this whole idea of like, okay, I'm going to live for this. I'm going to submit to this. I'm going to do everything. There's a greater cause that I have.
Right.
The next question is, how and what does that actually look like?
Yeah. Yeah, how do you know? Like how do you know when you're living nobly? Like you could, maybe you're going to church every day, but like after what point do you like, okay, I have a noble life? Like, how do
I have a noble life?
Like how do you know? Like, where's your backbone? I mean, like, all right, I know that I'm living nobly. When do you decide that?
When do you decide that you're actually noble?
Right.
Like that kind of whole idea.
Yeah.
Well, I think that, first of all, you have to have a basis for it. Mm-hmm. And that's the hard thing, is knowing where there's a basis. Mm-hmm. And for me, I look at more of a wisdom-based life, so that wisdom's in every culture. Mm-hmm. So you have like ancient Near East wisdom. You have it in Egypt. You have it in Samaria. You have it in Mesopotamia and Babylon. Mm-hmm. You have biblical wisdom, which is also in ancient Near East. Mm-hmm. So you have biblical wisdom. That's most people are familiar with wisdom. Mm-hmm. That's like the book of Proverbs, right. Song of Solomon, Ecclesiastes, things like that. So you have this idea that there's biblical wisdom. Then you have wisdom, and you have philosophies that are based off of wisdom, like Stoicism. And do you know what a Stoic is?
I think you should recap.
Okay, so
what does it mean to be a Stoic?
A Stoic is someone that they suppress themselves, realistically. The philosophy, I'll really whittle it down. It's that suppression of yourself or self-denial for something greater than who you are. Mm. It's a really unique philosophy, and most Americans actually are Stoics. We have a Stoic-based society. But even in psychiatry and all those areas, you have all this idea of this wisdom. It's something that's consistent. And that's just in the West. Then you go into the East, you go into like even art of war, mm-hmm. Chinese proverbs, even though most Chinese proverbs that people read online are not actually Chinese proverbs, they're just things people made up, but that's okay.
Oh, wow.
It's funny to read them. But all of those have like a central theme to them. And it's really living a moral life. And that's kind of the idea of being noble, is to live a moral life. And it's not a basis that is specific to who you are, like rules. Mm-hmm. So noble life is not rule-based.
Okay, so it's not like you're just setting values and just being like, okay, I fit within these.
Well, it is setting values. It's not setting rules. Mm-hmm. Like, okay, so this would be a rule. So like, for you, Sarah, to live a noble life, you need to have long hair, you need to always wear a dress, you need to speak correctly, you need to raise your kids to be absolutely perfect in all situations, and also in that time you need to follow these specific things. That's not what a noble life is. That's a law, that's a rule-based life.
Mm-hmm. Because it's restrictive, and also it's like almost impossible to fulfill completely.
Right, and that's where most people ask the question. They're always like, how do I live this? It's like, give me 5 rules to live by. Uh-huh. And I'm not attacking anybody that might have rules to live by, because they're actually not rules, they're actually philosophy, but that's okay.
Yeah, but like rules.
So like specific rules, like to be noble, you must have a master's degree. Mm-hmm. That is a rule. That's not true. Right. And first of all, what if you don't have a master's degree?
Right.
Or can you not live that? And what happens when you fail at doing a noble thing? You know, and that's so, or fail at the rule. So realistically, a noble life and all the proverbs and the wisdom is based in this whole idea of a principle that is kind of vague. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, I'll give you a principle, for instance.
Okay.
All right. Principle. If you hang out with wicked friends,
I've heard this
it'll end in blood.
Yep.
Okay. So, what is the principle in all of that?
Yeah.
It sounds like a rule, right? You could go to a rule. What's the rule? Don't hang out with wicked people.
Right.
Okay. That's a good principle to live by. Well, then you have like a million other questions. Mm-hmm. What's wicked? Who are the people? What is the definition of hanging out with them?
Right, exactly.
Okay, so you have all these things, but you understand when I said that to you, okay, I'm sure, did you have a picture of who you should not hang out with?
Yeah, like I'm picturing like people who are lying and going behind your back all the time and trying to get people and just, cause harm in the world.
Right. Or just think about this, like if it's somebody that's wicked, it could be wicked if just they are constantly, drinking and driving. They're constantly doing things they're constantly making enemies.
Yeah, getting in fights.
So you have this principle. Don't hang out with wicked people. Mm-hmm. But then there's attached to it, will end in blood. Uh-huh. Okay. That's a fun one.
That's a bold one.
So what does it mean it's going to end in blood?
I'm picturing someone's going to die. But,
all right, now here's the sad thing. Someone will die. There is the answer. It will end in most likely, and this is why it's a principle. It's not all the time, but it's most likely, in the end, somebody will die.
Ooh.
And that's like, let's just say you wanted to hang out with gang members, and you're like, yeah, let's hang out with gang members, and then you're shocked when somebody dies.
You're like, oh.
I kind of always look at it and go, you're really shocked?
Right, you see that coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a principle base. So that's really why wisdom and like wisdom literature, old wisdom literature.
Well, it's also giving space for people to like grow and kind of make their own choices and.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like have you actually interpret what it actually means to
give it kind of something personal to hang on to.
Right, because there's a million other ideas of Proverbs.
Right.
A million of different other things. Like, I'll use a Chinese one. Build your enemy a golden bridge to retreat. Okay, that is a Chinese actual proverb.
Wow, okay.
Okay, so what does that mean?
I'm picturing make it easy for people to leave if they're like seeking out the wrong things.
Okay, so now in your life you've had enemies, right?
I'm sure, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure. I love how you just lied like through your teeth there. I've never had an enemy in my life. No, you've had enemies, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's a moment of conflict that you're going to come to. Like, no matter what, everybody has that moment of conflict. This isn't family, this is an enemy.
Yeah.
Well, what is the greatest thing what's the most noble thing to have happen with an enemy?
They just leave, or you just leave.
Well, you don't go to war.
You walk away.
Right? Yeah. I mean, it's really don't go to war. Because if you go to war, what happens?
It drags in other people, and yeah.
Yeah, you have a chance of there's the term of war. You look at like the Hatfields and McCoys. Did you know there?
No. That's
a West Virginian. It's greatest family rivalry in American history.
Okay.
It was unique. They hate each other. They killed each other.
Wow.
So this is all enemies. That one ended in death.
Because it was family versus family.
Family versus family. So there's a thing. Well, then are they living the principle of build your enemy a golden bridge to retreat? Now,
no, it's
okay.
Don't let him escape.
You're like, I want to. So, but when you have an enemy, you're like, okay, I don't want to go to war with them.
Yeah.
So, realistically, why is that so good not to go to war?
Well, I think if the other people you're involved in your life, it lets everyone kind of go to peace and just let it go. And well, I think for yourself too, like you're not dragging on a conflict longer than it needs to be dragged on. You can just cut your losses and carry on
immediately, right?
Yeah.
You're like done.
Yeah.
Well, and it prevents you from actually getting hurt.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess like emotionally. Well, I don't know. Maybe not always. Like maybe there's some instances where you need to like. Okay. I don't know. I don't know if like emotionally I would feel good walking away from some stuff.
You know what? Okay, so like okay.
Like I need closure.
You know what? Well, okay, so
Right.
Once again, closure is what you say.
Yeah.
So that would be looking at yourself like I need this to be resolved. Mm-hmm. The best thing for me is to resolve this, but the wisdom that I just said, which is Sun Tzu, by the way, said build them a golden bridge to retreat.
And that is the closure. That's all the closure you need.
Is there closure and your enemy comes to your door to fight and you build them a bridge?
You're just like, all right.
For them to leave. How much closure is there for Sarah at that moment?
Well, I guess if they're coming to me, they can leave, I guess. I guess the closure is, okay, there's no more conflict.
Okay, there's no more. Well, you survived. That's the.
Everyone survived. No more conflict.
But so this is why wisdom's hard. Mm-hmm. Because you're like, but I want closure. So you immediately have that person in your head, and you're like, I want revenge on them.
Yeah, closure.
Well, okay, I want that. But all wisdom and what has been said from literally the beginning in this whole genre across cultures, time, and space, language, all of this has this whole idea that you're supposed to. That the wisest thing to do is not go to war, is to build a golden bridge. Now, this is a really cool thing, because building a golden bridge has many aspects to it.
Right.
So first of all, you have an enemy. Number two, who's building the bridge?
You're building the bridge.
Yeah, and what kind of bridge?
It's golden.
Oh, it's golden.
There's effort. There's a lot of effort. There's care.
There's cost.
Yes, I'm sure.
When you have an enemy, do you want to build them something of gold or something of value?
Yeah, no. Yeah, that says a lot. You're giving them value and as closure.
So just to do that, you are blessing them. It's a really weird thing.
Like a valuable exit.
You're making it, and it's a golden bridge. Now, what does that do? That also has an implication that you're allowing them, the decency of them being a human, which is a hard thing. Because we don't view our enemies as human. We actually subhuman them.
Yeah.
And we start to have this like ridiculous empathy thought of going, if I was in their shoes, they would understand what I think, which is horrible.
It's hypocritical. Yeah.
Well, it's just selfish.
Yeah.
It's beyond.
I guess you're not putting yourself in the enemy's shoes.
Well, you can't put yourself in the enemy's shoes. It's honoring them as a human. So you say, hey, they're valuable. And what's the most valuable thing to do? They hate me, I hate them. This is an enemy. This is not somebody good. We're not friends.
Yeah.
Okay, so they hate me, I hate them. I'm going to build them a golden bridge to retreat. The golden bridge cost me things, cost me money, it's valuable.
In time.
It costs me realistically, this is what it does. It makes me kind of look like a fool.
Yeah.
It makes me look humble. But also, it saves your enemy face. It's not humiliating them. When you can let your enemy have that whole idea where they can leave not looking like the bad guy, and they can leave with honor and respect themselves, that is a huge thing to do for that person. Just that person, that enemy that's there. So this is a principle that happens. Now that applies to every enemy you've ever had. That applies to every enemy I have.
Right.
This is a moral code. Realistically, this is something that we would want to do. That's a noble life. Now, here's the crazy thing about living a noble life. It's not fun.